Hey guys, Juan with Juan of Words here, and today I wanted to talk to you about a couple of stories that I've kind of been following the last couple of days, and I thought it might be interesting to start making these type of videos just to kind of share with you some of the things some of the stories that I find interesting or that I find relevant and that I just wanted to talk about with you. So without further ado, let me just tell you a little bit about the first story, and I'll start by asking you if you've heard of the name Maria Lorena Ramirez. She's a Mexican national, and she recently has been in the news and on social media, especially is where I've been seeing her story, because she's a 22-year-old woman from Mexico's Tarahumara indigenous community who recently won a 50-kilometer or 31-mile ultra marathon wearing sandals. And when I say sandals, I don't mean like the chanclas that you would buy at Walmart and take to run. She actually ran in huaraches, and if you're not familiar with huaraches are the rubber soles. They're made by hand, and they're pretty prevalent. I mean, just look up huarache and you'll see what I'm talking about. But she ran this race of 50 kilometers and won on the 29th of April, but it's just now starting to circulate and kind of going viral because it's kind of an interesting story that she was not a trained runner her whole life. She just has been running her whole life but not training for marathons. So the other funny thing is, not funny but interesting, is that she ran in a skirt and a scarf and she won the race. She beat women or competitors, let me double check real quick, 500 other runners from 12 countries from around the world. That's pretty impressive. So, and the race was called the Ultra Trail Cerro Rojo in Puebla in central Mexico. Now, last year she took home second place at the 100-kilometer category of the Caballo Blanco Ultra Marathon in Chihuahua. So last year she took second place. This year she took first place. I mean, that's pretty awesome for somebody that hasn't been training their entire life to be a marathon runner, which makes me think I kind of feel bad for the people that did train for a long period of time leading up to the marathon from the other countries, because they actually did a lot of work. And then to have Maria come in and just beat everybody without even having any prep is kind of disheartening, I would imagine, a little bit, but probably not. I mean, I'm sure they were all good sports and they really supported her and cheered her on. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm just assuming. And so what does she win for winning this race? She took home 6,000 pesos, which is about $320 US dollars. Not a huge amount, but I mean that's a lot of prestige too, to be able to say that I beat 500 other women from 12 other countries. And hey, who knows, maybe next year she'll be competing even bigger and wider in other arenas. And even if she doesn't, it's still kind of a cool testament of rewind. So I think it's a good testament though to the lifestyle that the Tarahumara community lives in, because according to this author, who's also a runner, his name is Christopher McDougall, and he's actually written about the Tarahumara traditions and how they, are very good runners just naturally. And the reasons that he pointed out, one of them was that they traditionally live in widely dispersed settlements where they, are pretty far away from each other, so they have to walk or run long distances to visit each other or to just, hunt and trade. So when you have to go long distances on a daily basis, you're obviously going to be healthier. You're obviously going to have more athletic ability. The other thing is that they run in groups, offering each other support and teaching youngsters to pace themselves. So it sounds like they start from an early age, which is always good that you kind of build that up from a young age. I mean, you can't really beat that. That's like you're training your entire life for it. And then they see running as a fine art, which forms part of religious ceremonies as well as traditional games and competitions in which men, women, and children participate. So, like I said, it's a lifestyle. It's a way of life for the Tarahumara, at least according to this article, which is from the BBC News. But I just thought it was an interesting story. Kudos to Maria Lorena Ramirez for winning this race. Hopefully, she gets much more than 6,000 pesos down the line, and maybe there's some sponsorship deals in the works for her. So if you're out there and you're looking for an inspirational story. This is it. This is it. You can't get any better than this. Which, changing gears a little bit now, the other story that I wanted to talk to you about was Despacito. Despacito. I think that's all I have to say. That's a song that's like heard all over the United States, so much so that now it's the #1 song in the country, and it's the second time that a song has been #1 in the United States. The first time was with La Macarena. So I don't know if you remember that song that was like Baila tu cuerpo, dale tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para darle alegría y cosa buena. That's all the singing you're gonna get from me. But yeah, I mean, I still remember that song because it was so pegajosa, no? Like that's what we say, like como chicle se te pega, and that's what like Macarena was. So now Despacito is kind of the same way. I was actually watching a YouTuber who was traveling in Italy. She was Mexican, and she was traveling, and she does travel vlogs, but she was traveling in Italy, and people kept asking her, like, what is this Despacito song? Or they kept playing it on the radio in Italy too. So I mean, it's a huge hit. And so the song is actually originally by Luis Fonsi, and it featured Daddy Yankee. But the story, according to this article in Billboard, is that Justin Bieber reached out to Luis Fonsi and was like, hey, I like the song, I want to be a part of the remix. And so then Justin Bieber singing in Spanish became a part of the song too, and I think that's when it like kind of blew up and skyrocketed and became a major hit, which, you know, might seem a bit unusual to some, but I mean, I've heard a lot of stations that, now that we've been traveling a lot and going through different cities, I've heard a lot of stations where, you know, English stations play Spanish music and Spanish stations play English music, and it's just not a big deal. And I mean, the truth is, that's the way we listen to music. Like when I listen to music, I listen to English, I listen to Spanish, I switch back and forth. You know, it's like code switching. It doesn't really doesn't even really register. I just do it because that's, you know, second nature to me. And I think more and more, like, you're gonna see more of that, and I think that's a good thing, because, you know, that means that there's all these new musical genres that are probably going to come out of that. So I'm interested to see what that is, because I did actually like the Despacito song. I do actually like the song. And that kind of brings me to the last topic I wanted to talk to you guys about, which is about Houston, my home city, the city that I'm always proud to represent. And the story about Houston lately is that it is now officially the most diverse city in the United States, passing Los Angeles, passing New York. It's not Los Angeles, it's not New York, it's Houston, Texas, believe it or not. And for those of us that have lived here, who are from Houston, that's not really a surprise, because we've known that we're very international for a very long time. I mean, there's more than 92 languages that are spoken in the city. There's so many diversity. Even you can just drive through the city and you see the diversity. Everyday life, you experience the diversity, and nowhere is that more present than in the food that you have available in Houston, and the culture. I mean, there's just a mixture of so many different cultures and so many different things kind of happening at the same time, and cultures just living together, communities just living together among each other, and it's not really a big deal. So the big I guess newsworthy angle for the LA Times and a bunch of other publications is that Houston is the model for the future, what the United States could look like in 2050. And, you know, I think that that's probably true, you know, because Houston is really a melting pot, to use a cliche term, of different ethnicities, different groups, and people just living together. I'm not going to say harmoniously all the time, because, you know, obviously it's never going to be 100% harmonious, but for the most part, getting along, for the most part, you know, living among each other. And just to kind of give you an idea of how that shift has been in the population, you know, in the Latino and Caucasian population, because those are the two populations that had the most drastic changes. In 1970, 10.6% of the Houston population was Latino, and 62.8% of that population was white. And now in 2010, the last census, 43.8% was Latino, and 25.6% was Caucasian. So that's a huge difference, and it's kind of like going flip-flop. They're flip-flopping, one is growing, one is diminishing. And so the article also notes that, and the LA Times notes that, Caucasians are getting used to living as minorities in the city of Houston. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. I don't think it's necessarily a mindset of going from being a majority to being a minority, but it's just being part of a more integrated, more diverse community. And I think that's really what makes Houston great, and what we should probably be prepared for the United States turning into. So with that, I think I'm gonna just leave it at that. Those are the top 3 stories that I've been following.